All right, it's me again, Jeff Gilmour from the Association of Residential Communities. Thanks for tuning in to this YouTube video. We're very, very glad that you've joined us specifically today because I'm joined by Andrej Vladar from Lumi, probably one of the most, in my view, powerful brands in the area of virtual meetings, proxies, electronic voting, and all of that goes with that. And specifically now, because we know that running normal meetings is not going to happen, so we're going to deal with some issues around what can happen now. Let's assume many of you guys have got your AGM or your EGM or a members meeting coming up. There is an answer. Also keep in mind that the Companies Act is quite clear in respect of what you need to ensure when you're running these meetings. It isn't as easy as simply doing a Skype or a Zoom or whatever those platforms are. There are certain requirements that you need to keep in mind in terms of how you record, how you report, how you run the meeting, how you allow voting to take place. And Andrej will try and answer those, but we want to try and keep this video as short as possible. And we ask that if you want more information, to contact Andrej straight after the meeting or at any given time. And at the end of this video, we'll also have the details for Andrej that you can contact him, or if you miss them, to contact me and I can put you in touch. What's also great about these meetings is it's not formal. We turn it into a chat, and my dogs are running around and Andrej's dogs are running around, and I like to drink a little bit of water during. So sorry about that, but life carries on. We don't have a formal studio that we can go to, and obviously in these times we are confined to our homes where things happen. So Andrej, thanks for attending. It's great to have you. It's great to have you with us on this discussion today.
Thanks, Jeff. It's great to be here, and thanks for setting this up for us.
Sure thing. All right, so let's launch into the first questions. I did mention that people generally at this time of the year are having their AGMs and EGMs and member meetings. How's Lumi going ahead, and how are you currently assisting HOAs with their next AGM if this has to be done virtually? So give us some of the practical means to it. You know, where do we start? Practically speaking, how does this work?
Well, Jeff, the concept of a virtual meeting isn't anything that's been new to us. It's not something that we've just put together now because we've hit this COVID-19 situation. Yeah. We've actually been running virtual meetings across the globe for the last 4 years. It's just in South Africa, we by culture are quite a social group that virtual meetings haven't really taken off here, although we've done a handful here and there. But to give you an idea, last year in the States, we did about 150 virtual meetings. Oh. And this year alone, we're looking at about 750 in the States and about 1,500 virtual meetings globally that we're hosting for our clients. Okay. So for the HOA market, we've come up with a solution that is an end-to-end fully virtual solution. From the point where we would send out meeting invites on behalf of the HOA to all the members or all the homeowners. And we would then, in those invites, provide all the necessary information that they need to access the meeting, things like a user guide, as well as obviously the username and password, all of which can be fully customizable and brandable to the specific HOA. We would also then provide them from that our pre-voting solution, which is our answer to proxy collection. So instead of having to go to, let's say, the clubhouse or to the admin office and hand in your paper-based proxy or email through a proxy, they could log onto the system and log the pre-vote prior to the meeting. Yeah. Especially for those that can't really attend on the day or aren't sure if they'll be able to attend on the day, they could at least then cast a vote prior to the meeting, which we would then hold as a proxy, and our system would automatically vote it live at the meeting, which also then, from a legality perspective, increases the chances of meeting quorum.
Yes.
So from there, we'd be able to then provide them with a live meeting platform in the form of a webcast, which does use Zoom, which is, familiar to most people. It's pretty familiar now. It's quite mainstream.
Yes.
And this would allow the members to be able to see and hear the proceedings from the comfort and the safety of their own home. And they would be able to see the board and all the presentations that are being made. And we, from a cybersecurity perspective, have separated the platform. So if you picture an in-room meeting, you've got the stage where your board sits, and then you've got the audience where your members sit. And we sort of split it in the same way. So the members connect to one platform and the board to another to enable that safety and that cybersecurity.
So can I, as a participant, participate in that meeting, or am I simply a listener and a voter?
You will be able to participate. So the platform is a fully authenticated platform, as well as being able to message in questions and comments to the board. And we found from a virtual environment that having messaging come into the fore is actually better corporate governance, in the sense that all messages are published.
Yeah.
It gives people that aren't necessarily comfortable with standing up in a room amongst other homeowners as their peers and verbally asking a question to just type in the question. And from a virtual meeting perspective, it gives the board more precise and concise questions that come in that they are able to answer, as well as it being fully auditable from a questions perspective. So we've tried to keep it as close to the in-room meeting as possible, as well as keeping in mind, the user friendliness of the platform and being able to do it from anywhere.
So do you during the meeting provide technical support? Because obviously there's a chairman of the meeting, and that would be the chairman of the board, and he may call on the financial director to do the financial report. Are you at the back end monitoring and looking and recording of some kind? So is there technical support during the meetings?
Yes, so we do what's called a white glove approach. So we help and assist and offer technical support from start to finish of the meeting, all the way from sending out the invites to during the meeting to post-meeting reporting.
All right, so let's talk. Let's expand on that security. You mentioned cyber security and all of these things. We'll, with all the benefits of it, and I certainly can see it, and I know many of our member estates see it. We may find an owner saying, well, he's not absolutely convinced that this whole thing is secure, and will his data be passed on, and all of these good things. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, so it's becoming very new for a lot of people, this concept of cybersecurity. A few years ago, identity theft was a big thing, but that was obviously person-to-person kind of security. And now that we've been thrown into the middle of the virtual world, people are slowly but surely starting to realize that cybersecurity is a very important thing. And what is quite important to look at when looking at security of your meeting is it's always worthwhile to note that it's not just the meeting itself that needs to be secured, not just the platform that's being used that needs to be secured, but the data that's being used in the platform needs to be just as secure. And we treat customer data with the utmost importance. I mean, it is our bread and butter, people's data, and compliance with POPI, compliance with GDPR is paramount for us. So, the confidentiality and the availability and the integrity of the information is at the forefront of everything we do as a technology business. And we have our own in-house resources that focus primarily just on information security and data privacy with regards to our products and, the services are considered throughout the entire life cycle of all our development in our projects. So we try our best to stay informed, stay up to date about any new emerging threats or vulnerabilities, with specific focus on our mobile technology, especially for the virtual world, in cyber security. And we've just received our ISO certification.
Oh, wow.
Which means our internal processes and procedures are continuously being monitored, continuously being audited, and we adapt accordingly, using any third-party references that we can.
Yes.
And we stay up to date with publications, media, reading white papers, and our own suppliers documentation.
Yes.
So the entire platform isn't just built by us. A lot of it's proprietary.
Yes.
But a lot of our cloud services are on the backbone of things like Amazon, AWS,
Yes.
which is one of the powerhouses in security. And we take a lot of guidance from them as to how to keep everything secure as possible. And we try and apply all the policies and practices that are widely acceptable in the environment of cybersecurity.
And of course, the fact that you have run, as you mentioned earlier, so many of these meetings worldwide, and I refer specifically to America, where they have very strong, very, very highly enforced privacy laws in place, that would have been checked out, and all of these would have been verified. So in South Africa, we don't have to worry about that, and that would be secured. So that's fantastic. So going forward, Andrej, you mentioned earlier, this is not a new thing. It's come to the fore because we are unable to have gatherings. It's the law, it's the Disaster Management Act. But in fact, communities that buy into this and contact you to come and talk to them about their specific needs, numbers, and all of these good things, this is a thing of the future. Taking COVID right out of it. With COVID, it's a thing of the future, but without COVID, it should have been a long time ago a thing, a new normal. So, do you foresee it taking off in South Africa? And in a nutshell, why should HOA seriously consider talking not to the issue of virtual meetings, but to Lumi, who's probably the biggest brand I have come across in the South African market in this specific area. It's not as easy as using Skype as a way of just getting 100 people on. If you want chaos, you'll get chaos. Nothing wrong with Skype, but there's a fit for purpose, isn't there? So is it,
yes.
Going forward, what do you foresee?
Well, as you just said, Jeff, it's horses for courses. So you got to take what fits, and for lack of a better term, not try and squeeze a square peg into a round hole, so to speak. So I don't believe that virtual meetings are just for lockdown, and I don't believe that people are only using virtual meetings because they feel like they're forced to. I don't feel that it's a hard sell or a grudge sell for that reason, or in those terms.
Correct.
But as a business and as a global business, we're always looking past what's currently happening, and we are for sure looking at what would be called the new normal coming out of COVID-19.
Yeah.
And as I said before, there's been a steady trend of adoption of virtual meetings over the last few years, and I think people are getting a lot more confidence by this accelerated adoption of virtual meetings. There are many reasons for the adoption of a virtual meeting, not least to maintain good corporate governance. Virtual meetings attract more members than a physical meeting would, including those who are otherwise not able to attend due to time or cost or physical limitations. So by having virtual meetings, it does improve your inclusivity and representation of your members. Virtual meetings are arguably more democratic when it comes to a Q&A type of session. It's it's no longer the person with the loudest voice that gets heard all the time, but all members would have an equal voice. And as I said before, often those individuals who feel uncomfortable asking a question in a room full of people are much happier to sit by the computer and submit their questions online. And also they could be at lower costs for some HOAs as well as being greener and less time consuming.
Yeah.
But, you know, having said that, we're not, as a business, completely pro-virtual and everything is, you know, going to be virtual, and it's a steadfast rule that once we come out of this COVID disaster, that it's all going to be virtual. We are actually more pro-hybrid. We are well aware of the fact that when we come out of this, people are going to be flooding out into public. We are a social kind of people. We enjoy the networking and social contact that an in-room meeting provides. You know, doing the AGM and maybe sitting and having a beer afterwards.
Sure.
There are people that still enjoy doing that.
So
but
you
we
can
do
still
believe
do that.
we can still do that.
You can still do that. So you could have a central point where people that wish to come into the meeting physically can, but what you're doing is you're expanding your reach for those that perhaps can't. And I think about in the Western Cape, where there are a lot of swallow estates, where people that own property there, high value property, can't participate because they live in Germany or whatever. Now they can.
Exactly. So we are very looking at a more pro-hybrid approach, which would mean more inclusivity and a wider range of choices for members to attend and participate at a meeting. So you could have the in-room environment and then have a virtual element connect into it, and our system can facilitate both at the same time.
So in closing, I want to make one comment that is important for me. We often find that annual general meetings become disrupted by someone that's come with a personal agenda. We all have them. Sometimes it's more than one person, and you mentioned this loudest voice. One thing that sticks out for me is that this is a more, and I don't want to use the word, but I think listeners will understand what I'm saying, a more controlled environment to ensure that it's not a free-for-all, that it's not about one person standing up where the chairman then doesn't know how to deal with that one person, and that one can set it up to create an environment of passing resolutions, of making decisions, getting agreements, confirming budgets, confirming the financials, rather than swaying off because someone has got a hidden agenda. And we often see that. Fantastic.
Exactly.
Andrej, that's excellent stuff. It was wonderful to catch up with you today. As I said earlier, your details are available, and we encourage every one of our members to contact Andrej or one of his team, and they can organize a virtual meeting with you at this time to discuss how it's going to work and set it up. It's something that can be taken offline and get you set up. It's about getting data and putting the data in and putting a date on and getting it set up. So it's been fantastic spending the last 15 minutes with you, Andrej. And I wish you well and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.